Mr. Joe Powell. Welcome, Mr. Powell. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
So what are we discussing and talking about, Mr. Powell?
Well, the people that have listened to my broadcasts, as opposed to Adam's, know that frequently in talking about family law, I bring up issues regarding emotions, because whether the potential client is a man or a woman, oftentimes there are very, very strong emotions that go along with issues regarding families, and divorces can be one of the very most difficult things any person can go through. Even the person that wants the divorce often is going through a lot of emotional issues that they need to be aware of. And I recommend to people that are going through divorces, child custody disputes, property disputes, and things that can be very draining, consider the possibility if you might benefit from some counseling. And especially, I'm going to talk to the men, because men sometimes will kind of have the approach, we want to be strong, we want to be the pillars of the family and so forth. And sometimes men will mask very strong, very serious emotions. And sometimes women are better able to deal with emotions than men are. And just because a person is a man doesn't mean they don't have strong feelings about their children, about property, about their spouse, and maybe feeling a sense of rejection that can sometimes happen, especially if you're the person that does not want the divorce. So I want to encourage people to consider working with religious leaders, working with friends, working with family members who can be trusted. And not every family member knows how to deal with these things. A lot of times people will find that some family members can actually add to the problem. I probably hear that every day from someone, that, a father-in-law, a mother-in-law, a brother, a sister may actually, trying to help, may actually make matters more difficult. And so I just want people to be aware that it's natural for there to be a lot of emotion in a divorce situation. And, this is something that everybody has to be aware of. And the person that you're dealing with on the other side, you need to be sensitive to the things that they are going through. And everyone who hires an attorney should encourage their attorney to look carefully at both sides on all disputed issues in a divorce or child situation, property division, and so forth. Because if your attorney doesn't pay attention to the other side's case, they're doing only half their job. Half of my job is to be looking at the way the other side's going to present certain matters in a case. And sometimes people will get a little bit unsure of themselves when they're hearing their attorney try to see the other side's viewpoint on a case. It doesn't mean that they're going to go into court and battle for the other side. It just means that they need to help you as the client prepare for the aspects of the case that will be brought up by the other side. And always remember, in court, both sides get to be heard. And one of the mottos that kind of comes up, or things that people that practice family law often discuss, is that a lot of times you don't know the full extent of the case until you hear what is presented by the other side. Because your client will often just give you their side of the case, and they're reluctant to tell you the things that might work against them. I've had clients that didn't tell me about drug issues that they have. Well, I'm telling everybody that's listening to this broadcast, tell your attorney the things that you're dealing with. even things that you don't want mentioned. Your attorney doesn't have to bring those things up, but your attorney needs to know about them in case they come up from the other side. I tell people that usually the other side knows your portion of the case too. They know the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, they're going to be looking at that from their perspective. And in saying that, let me say something that a lot of people overlook. A lot of times people think that the other side is lying. It happens in so many family law cases. Well, I find that oftentimes both parties are telling the truth from their perspective. And sometimes it's hard to understand the other person's perspective because you really don't want to go there. It's natural not to want to look at your spouse's side of the case. But you definitely want to support your attorney when your attorney looks at the other side of the case. If your attorney doesn't do that, they're making a mistake.
So that's
is there somebody calling?
No, my question here was, have
Okay.
you looked into cases like this when you figured out about these two people and you emotionally gave them the advice that they should go for help and not get into a divorce?
Well, of course, I talk to my clients about that in private. You know, that's not something I discuss with them while the other side can overhear, even if it's a mediation or something like that. But in private, you want to tell your attorney anything bad that could come up. Even 3 or 4 years ago, some physical altercations. Tell your attorney about that so that if it comes up, your attorney is ready to deal with it. Most of the time, an attorney that has as much experience as I have, which is quite a bit, I've handled thousands of cases. So there's not very much that can come up that I haven't seen before. And no matter how bad something might be, there are generally ways that it can be dealt with. If a person has had problems in the past, they can show the judge that they're dealing with those issues in the present, that they're working on issues that might come up, things that they might need to improve in themselves. For example, if a person has used drugs, Texas judges are not very patient with drug use because there's no drugs, no common drug usage that's seen as nothing in family law courts in Texas. A lot of people think that marijuana is harmless. I don't necessarily disagree with them, but the family law judges have to follow the law of the state of Texas, and marijuana is not legal in Texas at all. Now, it doesn't mean a police officer might not look the other way in certain circumstances, but in family law court, you have to deal with everything that's going on. So alcohol problems, drug problems, emotional problems, mental problems, all have to be looked at. And every once in a while, you'll go into court and you'll find out in court that your client has some mental problems that you were unaware of. Maybe they function pretty well, but in certain circumstances, maybe they don't see things in a clear and accurate way. Maybe their vision is a little bit cloudy on some issues. I've had that happen, and I've had judges pick it up when I wasn't aware of what the client was experiencing, and that can be damaging to the client more than if the client would let me know that they struggle with some issues.